In the last lesson on meiosis, we learned about one of the benefits of sexual reproduction via meiosis, and that was the production of unique sex cells, genetically unique sex cells. So they have unique mixtures of mom and dad genes. And this means that sexually reproducing populations are more capable of evolving adaptations to rapidly changing environments. And if we compare that back to our, say, single-celled organism that is going to reproduce by mitosis, you'll recall first the chromosomes must be duplicated. And if that DNA duplication happens without any errors, then the offspring are going to be identical. They will be clones, right? Now, we know, though, that when DNA gets duplicated, right, the DNA strands have to separate and the letters will have to find their matching partner, and the protein comes along and stitches up the missing strand. And so we have a process looking like this. We know that that process does sometimes make mistakes, and we call them mutations. So these two offspring produced by mitosis are probably not genetically identical. They will have mutations different from the original parent, right? So because DNA copy errors do occur, mitosis will produce some variation. So there will be some variation in offspring as a result of the mitosis process, but meiosis produces much greater variation in offspring, thus allowing for faster evolutionary change in a species. Now, in this lesson, we'll look at another advantage, another way of looking at the benefit of doing meiosis and reproducing sexually. And to see that, let's take a look at that kind of recombination scenario that we saw in the previous lesson. Here we have the red chromosome from dad, and we have the green chromosome from mom. And you'll recall that early in meiosis, when the two look-alike chromosomes do the tango, there can be breaks in the chromosome, and then the cell's repair system will sometimes mix up the chromosomes and reattach them in a new recombined way. But now imagine dad's chromosome here has maybe some kind of bad mutation up here in this gene up here. And mom's chromosome has a bad mutation, a change in the DNA sequence down here in this gene down here. Well, now look what happens when recombination happens between those two genes. What you're going to get is this region of dad combined with this region of mom, and you'll have one chromosome that has both of the bad mutations. Look what happens to the other chromosome. No bad mutations. In other words, the recombination process has the power to fix a chromosome of mutations that otherwise would be sort of bad for the offspring. And in fact, a sex cell that has this chromosome with two bad mutations, that sex cell, if it's lucky enough to find, its partner, that individual may not develop properly, or may die during a development, or have a more difficult time in competition with others in the population. So notice that natural selection will be operating on these combinations of genes. The recombination event happening during meiosis is fixing chromosomes and kind of concentrating. It has the power to concentrate bad mutations along one chromosome, which then can be eliminated by natural selection. Now, let's take a look at the opposite side of the coin. Imagine these were not bad mutations, but they were good mutations, right? So some change in the DNA sequence that actually made a better protein that did something even more useful, or did something better. So instead of bad here, now let's just imagine good. Well, the recombination process, just as it concentrates the bad mutations on one chromosome and fixes the other chromosome, if these mutations are good, then we have this situation down here. We'll have one chromosome that has concentrated the good mutations, and then the other chromosome has the other normal versions of those genes. Well, sure enough, natural selection will favor this combination of genes over this one. So individuals that had a parent that had this chromosome in their sex cell, those individuals will have an advantage than if the parents had this chromosome in the sex cell. So what natural selection is, or what meiosis is doing, is that it's creating a situation where the chromosomes can be fixed of bad mutations, and then the flip side of that is chromosomes can be improved when good mutations are concentrated along one chromosome. And if we think about that from the point of view of a sexually reproducing population, you might have one parent that's a good predator avoider and another parent that's a good hunter, and they can find each other, right? And so the good hunting genes and the good predator avoidance genes, they can be combined into a single individual. And in addition, then the process of meiosis in the production of sex cells for the next generation can be fixing chromosomes, and it can be concentrating good mutations. So here we see then the third important thing that meiosis does. It concentrates good and bad mutations, allowing natural selection to favor or eliminate individual genes and gene combinations on chromosomes. In a sense, then, because genes are linked, physically linked along the length of DNA, genes are linked together on chromosomes, but meiosis is delinking those genes, creating fluid chromosomes. And these fluid chromosomes are subject to natural selection. So meiosis means that genes in a population can be recombined, can be combined in different ways, and natural selection then can be acting on all these different combinations of genes. So in summary then, we have the costs and benefits of sexual reproduction. We saw that sexual reproduction carries the cost of allowing only half of one's genes to be passed on to offspring, and the time, energy, resources, and the danger. But the benefit is that by mixing genes with others in the population, offspring may have a better chance of being adapted to changing environments. Meiosis can fix chromosomes and concentrate good genes from two parents in one individual. And the bad genes, or bad gene combinations, are eliminated from the population by natural selection.